Folks, it's that time of year once again. Hey, everybody, it is Kellen Nitro for Nitromaniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited. And joining me at this time is the mighty Moorhouse from Moorhouse HQ. I'm at Nitromaniac HQ. Moorhouse, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's happy January 2021.
It's time for the yearly tradition on this channel where Moorhouse and I get together and we vote as if we were members of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We vote as if we were Brian Alvarez or Dave Meltzer or Vinny, who I can never remember his last name, or Jim Valley, who has been valiantly in and out of hospital this year and fighting something and is doing better now, which is great. And all of the great contributors, Lance T. Storm now at this point for Figure 4 Weekly and Wrestling Observer Live and everything. It is, as I continue to spitball here, the 2020 Meltzer Awards, the 2020 Wrestling Observer Awards. And this is how we would fill out the ballot if we were granted the chance to vote. So as we've done in the past couple of years, we've split the categories up into two, I guess, winners for each category. There will be a WWE winner because they're their own universe, and an AEW non-WWE winner because the Indies and AEW and New Japan is its own universe as well. So without further ado, let's get to it. I don't know where to put my hands, so it's waving all over the place here.
Is this like the Ricky Bobby thing?
I don't know where I'm putting my hands. Just waving. Hello, hello, hello. So, all right. We opened the show this year with the Manager of the Year for 2020, and I have winners for both categories here for Manager of the Year. WWE, as it has been for the past, red decade or so, it is Paul Heyman, the Manager of the Year. Comes back with Roman Reigns after a successful run with Brock Lesnar, ends at WrestleMania this past year, and comes back and basically is the antithesis and the genesis of Roman Reigns becoming this giant heel now on WWE TV. So he's my pick for WWE Manager of the Year. AEW non-WWE Manager of the Year, I'm going to go to New Japan Pro Wrestling and go with the master heater himself, Gato. He had an amazing run with Jay White that sounds like has wrapped up now, with Jay White potentially going to WWE or wherever he's going, or if he's just retiring. I'm not sure if this is the storyline or what. Nobody knows at this point. But Moorhouse, those are my two picks for Manager of the Year. I'm going to go with Paul Heyman on the WWE side and Gato on the New Japan Pro Wrestling side of things.
Those are good choices. Mine are different than yours.
Go ahead.
And that's a good thing.
Yes.
So for the first time in maybe a decade, I'm not giving the Manager of the Year to Paul Heyman.
Wow. Okay. Tell.
I'm giving it to Zelina Vega.
Really?
Yeah, I think she had a powerful year. She's worked both with Andrade and all the Mexican wrestlers very well this year. Mm-hmm. She also got herself over. Unfortunately, near the tail end of 2020, she had a falling out with the company and left. Mm-hmm. But she left on very high terms. Like when she gets her block done, she can go anywhere she wants.
Highly, highly sought after free agent in 2021. Don't be surprised if we see her in AEW, but also don't be surprised if we see her in Impact as well. Mm-hmm. Those could both be very viable options for her. She already has her persona from the Indies as Fia Trinidad, that she can mm-hmm. come in and be a heel Impact as either a wrestling talent or a manager, or even a commentator as well, because she's that powerful behind the mic. Very impressive presence. That's an awesome choice, by the way. That he fakes off the board already. This is the first category, folks. He's floored me. That's amazing. So, do you have a pick for AEW non-WWE?
I'm picking Jake Roberts.
Again. Wow. All right.
He is the perfect mouthpiece in AEW. For Lance Archer. Mm-hmm. I love the gimmick that he's doing. Jake Roberts does he's playing Jake Roberts in 89 again, where he's just creepy and just, sending in eerie messages to all the talent. He's just been a positive presence for, Lance Archer, who's not much of a talker.
And let's face it, we fought. Well, the majority of the year, Lance Archer and Jake Roberts were kind of a heel alignment on that heel side of things. Feuding with Cody, feuding with Darby Allin for a time, et cetera, over on AEW. And towards the end of the year, they kind of did a face turn slightly where Archer was kind of, I guess, siding with Death Triangle a little bit, and their feud with Kingston's, I think it's the First Family is what he's calling his, or just Kingston's Family, I guess, is what he's calling the name of his stable. And we've seen Jake Roberts basically go out in promos and that stuff, and it's a throwback. It's great to see him, have this much fun. It's definitely a lighter schedule. The show benefits with him being on it for two reasons. One, who wouldn't want to pick the mind of Jake Roberts when it comes to, matches and promo ability and so on and so forth. And two, Roberts, back 100% clean, ready to go, is, a valued asset anywhere, and just is.
He's getting a career resurgence with AEW, and it's fantastic.
A late career resurgence with AEW, and you can tell he's a valued member of that roster, valued member of that team. So, yeah,
if you're any wrestler and you need help with promos and character, pick his brain.
Yeah, no, exactly. He is a wealth of knowledge, and it's cool to see that happen. Man, after that first one, I'm excited to see where we're going here for the rest of these. So, category number 2, best heel of 2020. My picks are, on the WWE side, I'm going to say Roman Reigns is the best heel for 2020. And over on the AEW side, it's got to be MJF. We'll start with Roman first. I think for years we have been salivating at the thought of Roman Reigns as a heel, and he comes back, and without basically, announcing himself as a heel in a classic sense, it was kind of a slow burn over the summer and the fall. Comes back into the fold as just this cool bad guy heel, kind of a mixture between Razor Ramon and Diesel a little bit.
A bit NWO vibe to him, a bit of a Hollywood Hogan vibe.
Yep. Yeah, just kind of the great hybrid of the three, and with Heyman in his corner, and with the Usos potentially as henchmen or as his lackeys,
his little dummies.
Yeah, basically, they have been the great heel foils for guys like Kevin Owens over on SmackDown, and it's one of the few things that WWE has done correctly, I feel, over the past few months or so, and that it's actually watchable on WWE TV.
I mean, I agree with those picks quite a bit.
Yep.
The problem I have with Roman is he is a cool heel, and with cool heels, they're more tweeners, so they have fans and they don't have fans. So my pick for WWE is a guy who has absolutely no fans.
Mm-hmm.
He's murdered people live on TV this year, and that's Randy Orton.
Yeah, well, dating back to the very first Meltzer Awards, you can go back and listen and rewatch my rant on Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt, and Arson. We revisited that again this year as they did that out of their playbook. Man, Orton, we'll talk about him later because I have him. I'm going to save my comments for him later on in the show because I have him down as winning a few big awards towards the end. But yeah, a career resurgence year for him.
He's had a great year. He's been a total asshole on, pardon my language, on the show from the start at the end to 2020. He's killed people this year and not gone to prison for it.
The whole premise of the channel Moorhouse is it's a very real look at a very fake world of pro wrestling. So
yeah.
Be real.
And then my best heel for the other guys is Eddie Kingston this year.
Okay. All right.
He came to AEW with not much circumstance and made himself a top level heel in the company very fast.
Mm-hmm.
He's been great, dynamite on promos, dynamite on mics. He's him and Moxley put on a great match and had a great little feud there.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's feuding with Pac and the Lucha Bros, and it's just been fantastic to see his evolution into a top level heel.
Yeah, and my pick on the AEW side, MJF, I think that this year was just a continuation of everything that he did last year. I think that this is one guy that the pandemic maybe took him off TV a little bit, but that's just because nobody from New York was allowed to travel out of state or anything. And so, and with AEW's current roster, that really narrowed down their talent pool because they have about 7 or 8 guys from the state of New York that they were flying in for AEW shows. So that was the big hiccup with the pandemic, is that, between New York and California, there wasn't a lot of talent to go around. And that's why you've seen the guys from Florida and Georgia kind of centralize in Georgia to do the shows at QT Marshall's school during the pandemic and whatever. But MJF still, during the pandemic, don't forget, was sending in video packages, sending in video promos, keeping his character as hot as possible. And then when they brought him back, the feuds throughout the year that he had, and then eventually, joining up with the Inner Circle with Chris Jericho and the feud around that. Something definitely to watch in 2021. MJF, I think, is still the top heel in that company, if not in the top 5. So
no complaints there. MJF is fantastic on the mic. He gets off on being a villain. He loves it. If you say something nice to him or try to, just praise him, he just turns it back down and shoves it right back in your face right away.
Which is an old school heel. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's an old school heel. That's the blueprint of it. Best baby face. Now every good heel has to have good baby faces, and I picked a couple of good ones here. I think on the WWE side, Kevin Owens is my pick for best baby face in WWE, and over on the AEW side, I have Darby Allin as my pick for best baby face, I should say. Heel might be a talk about with Darby Allin in 2022. There's a little spoiler on how I think his year is going to go, but in 2020, Darby, I think, really, they worked with him on his persona a little bit, so much to the point where towards the end of the year he won the TNT title and is their TNT champion, and it's a good spot for him. They have a potential huge character arc with Sting that they're working with him with right now, and it's just a really eye-opening year for this guy, and I think a lot of real influential moments in his career took place in 2020, pandemic or not. So
for AEW, I have the exact same match as you. Darby Allin has made himself one of the most popular baby faces on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
The skateboarding punk gimmick is really popular with the kids, I guess, these days.
Yes.
So I have no problem with Darby Allin. I think that's a great choice. My baby face for WWE is Drew McIntyre.
Yep. Okay.
He's the Scottish Hulk Hogan. Just rolling down everyone and just giving, babyface promos and just being a perfect guy that everyone gets along with.
Mr. Excitement, the Drew McIntyre. I think that, it's an unfair gauge the year 2020 is with Mac. I think that the pop that he had when he won the Rumble
was huge.
That was massive. I mean, that was, one of the pops of the year because it was such a fresh result, right? So
his kick on Lesnar, everyone just lost it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When he eliminated Lesnar too, it was great. So, that was the whole deal with that. And, as I said, the pandemic didn't really give him enough. It didn't give him, enough of a true gauge with the fans to see, how in-house and how on house shows and, traditional means, I guess, of how people would, I guess, measure the success of a champion or whatever, how that would kind of translate,
I understand. Like, we're seeing the WB produced version of Drew McIntyre, where we have a wall of TVs where people watch and just kind of, slow clap and whatever.
Yeah.
But we're not actually getting a proper noise gauge. So when they have an arena show eventually, hopefully this year, if Drew comes out, there could be a chance it's nothing but fart noises.
Or it could be a chance that they got something, the guy's the next Rock, Steve Austin, or Hulk Hogan. So
we don't know.
You don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Where AEW, you have a bit of fans, you have a small bit of fans, and you can get a little bit of a gauge. WWE, unfortunately, is WWE produced, and they throw in their own crowd noises, so you don't even know.
In addition to the awards that are year after year on this award show, I went back throughout the year and kind of made some notes on some past Wrestling Observer awards that are, discontinued by the Observer for one reason or another. This one is my favorite, and this is why I wanted to include it in this year's awards. This award ran in the Wrestling Observer from 1985 on through 1992. At the end of 1992, it was deemed, I guess, redundant, or Dave didn't want to run it anymore, because the same guy ended up winning it 3 times in a row. This is the most obnoxious award for 2020, as was picked by myself and Moorhouse under the Wrestling Observer rules. I have deemed this the Herb Abrams Memorial Award, because Herb Abrams, the former promoter of the second UWF, Universal Wrestling Federation, from the early 90s, ended up winning this award 3 years in a row, 1990, 1991, and its final year in 1992, just basically being the most obnoxious man in pro wrestling. The one that you don't want to see on your TVs. You don't want to interact on social. Well, there was no social media back then, but an interesting hypothetical was brought up on a podcast I listened to, the Between the Sheets pod, with David Bixenspan and Chris Zellner in one of their Patreon specials. And they basically said, could you imagine if this award existed today, who the winners would be? Well, imagine no more. This is why we're here. Mr. Hypotheticals here. So this is what we got. So most obnoxious of 2020. My picks kind of split. One is devoting strictly to the on television, on screen product, and that's the WWE winner. And the non-WWE winner, I went just literal here with it. So my picks are from WWE, King Corbin, and non-WWE, AEW, and JPW, whatever. It's not somebody affiliated with a promotion. There was a fella on Twitter by the name of Brad Shepard who wrote for a publication called Pro Sports Extra. And he is my pick for the most obnoxious award winner for 2020, just due to the fact that this guy was the card-carrying definition, and is the card-carrying definition, of slum journalism. No, I mean, he has, the amount of research that he puts into his articles and that stuff is probably slim to none. He's a guy that writes very clickbaity type things like, I don't know, who has the best ass out of all the WWE women's wrestlers or something. And our frickin' timelines can't get rid of them, because every time we block him, he's kind of like the current sitting president in the United States. He just hops on another Twitter account and starts spewing his stuff all over. So, Brad Shepard of formerly Pro Sports Extra. I have no idea what the hell he's writing for now. I see him still from time to time on my timeline. You, sir, are the most obnoxious of 2020. Even more obnoxious than, even people that I know that have started channels and have quoted stories wrong for editorials or so on and so forth. This guy constantly, day after day, year after year, month after month, is just putting out real clickbaity stuff around the business, and it's just gets sickening after a while. So
that's a fantastic choice.
End rant.
That's a fantastic choice. I didn't pick him as mine, but I wasn't thinking about him either.
I went off the board with that one. I went way off the board, and maybe some people say I've gone overboard with that, but there we go. But my WWE choice, King Corbin, strictly is just character wise. I think he's definitely doing his job as a heel. I can't picture him as a babyface. That's the thing, is that I know that the needs of WWE or whatever brand he ends up on in 2022 or whatever may dictate him to be a babyface wrestler, especially after he loses the King of the Ring title. But the thing is, I can't picture him being a babyface. I think he's a career heel now at this point.
He's like Randy Orton. He has that heel persona. He just has to be a heel.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So go ahead with yours.
Yeah. So my choices. So for WWE, I'm choosing Mr. Vince McMahon.
Okay.
Reason why
easy target.
Easy target. This year in 2020, he had record profits, yet still saw the need to release 20 or 30 backstage wrestlers and talents just to help his profit.
Mm-hmm.
He took away wrestlers' rights to enterprise themselves and market themselves online, unless they pay WWE a certain fee for that.
Yeah, the Twitch Gate.
Twitch Gate, YouTube Gate. I think only Xavier Woods agreed to do that deal with him.
Yeah, just because Xavier is making money hand over fist, I think, with that, and he has outside interests that will cover up the shortfall. I think that's the only reason why he agreed to that, but anyway.
But it affected Paige, it affected Selena Vega, it affected AJ Styles. Yep. A bunch of others. Drake Maverick, I think, had to close his Twitch as well.
Yep. Well, it affected Zelina Vega to the point where she left the company over it.
Because she was making more money doing Twitch than she was working for Vince.
Yep. Her outside ventures.
And again, they have the pay scale issue with the men-women talent there. Selena was barely making enough to, live a happy life. So now doing Twitch full time, she's able to make more than that and enjoy the benefits of it. So that's my pick for WBE. It's Vince McMahon. My pick for the Indies, AEW, etc. It's a three-way tie.
Okay.
We have 3 idiots, 3 Trump heads.
Okay.
3 people that had no problem with what happened just recently in the U.S.
Yeah. Okay. The events of the past week have drastically changed our opinions.
But these people's opinions were already set in stone prior to that incident.
Yeah.
So that would be Sean Morley.
So
Glenn Gilberty.
Disco Inferno. Okay.
And Chris Jericho.
Wow. Okay. There was another name that I thought you were going to mention there, and you didn't. That's interesting. So, okay, I am not familiar with what the former Val Venus / Chief Morley has said over the past week or so with this.
So for the past week, he's been blasting Twitter, Facebook for taking Donald Trump offline. They think it was the Americans had the right to do what they did, and it's coming from a Canadian, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
With Glenn Gilberty, he's been attacking the trans community last year. He just doesn't understand anything that goes on with current wrestling.
Yep.
And he's trying to make a name for himself because, that's what he's done since he's been in WCW.
When Don Callis and Lance Storm had their Killing the Town podcast, Disco Inferno was a running joke on that podcast because both Don and Lance agreed that Glenn does not get the business, never got the business, and is giving people the business while not understanding the business, if you know what I mean. Go back on the Killing the Town podcast feed. It's still up on iTunes and everything, even though they've stopped doing shows for I think over a year now or something like that, and just listen back, and those episodes are clearly marked as well too. There was a debate between Callis and Gilberti where Callis absolutely lights him up, and it is one of my favorite podcasts of all time that I've ever listened to. It's just a solid hour of, okay, I'm going to drag you through the mud. And for whatever reason, Gilberti takes it. And it's like, it just every 5 minutes, something stupid comes out of his mouth, and they just jump on it. It's amazing. But yes, I've known about the Disco Inferno's lack of knowledge on, well, basically anything woke. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, he doesn't get it. And then Jericho, I think Jericho's just had a poor year last year. From everything, having Don Jr. show up on his podcast and talking about how Republicans are awesome, to him attacking people that believe differently than him on Twitter, donating us. He donated over $30,000 to the Trump campaign openly. He didn't get the election results, and he said it's a fraud, so he's joined that bandwagon as well.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair thing. And like I said, we can go back to all of our comments during the year in review show that we did. That's back on the channel as well, talking about Chris and how I think that a lot of pressures with his position are starting to get to him a little bit, and the big pressure of he's sunk a ton of money into this triple whammy cruise thing that's supposedly supposed to happen, but it might not happen. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, he's also I think he's not a big believer. Like, he understands COVID, but he doesn't believe in COVID too much.
Okay. Yeah, because
he did the Sturgis rally with over 60,000 people in the summer.
Yeah,
that actually had an outbreak out of it.
And one thing that I'll say, like, the Sturgis rally thing is its own deal. I can't defend the guy for that or whatever. The thing about the podcast that he did is that he did a podcast with a COVID denier, I think, scientist or something, or not even a scientist. I think it was just an editorialist or something like that. Anyway, it was a COVID denier regardless. And he put that out there in the beginning weeks of the pandemic. And I think within a few weeks or so after the backlash started to pick up, he had somebody on that was an actual doctor talking about the whole outbreak and what we should do and so on and so forth.
But he was told to do that by his company.
I believe so. I think he did. There's not really a full defense on that. All I can say too is that during the election, he did have Andrew Yang on, months later, or actually, I think even it might have been months later. It might have been a few weeks later. I can't remember the exact timeline. After Donald Trump Jr. was on, talking about basically Yang's vision about going after WWE over the labor issues and so on and so forth. So I think that he might have had with that, I think he might have had a quick 180 once he saw how everything was going. And maybe that was after his last campaign contribution or something. But I don't know. There's going to be a lot of things that he's going to have to try to explain out of in 21. We'll put it that way.
He's had a weird year. I think he openly admitted to having a dream recently with Chris Benoit in it and telling him to do these things for the people. And yeah, he's just a little crazy. And
if that's the case, then I'd be really concerned about him having some sort of CTE or something.
Oh, I think he definitely has some mental health issues.
So that'd be my one issue right now with that. But like I said, this cruise thing is definitely something that I'm following very, very closely, and you can go back through the channels or go back through the channel and see all my past work on that and so on and so forth. And I'm endeavoring to have people on the channel to talk more about it, as the weeks and months go on. And yeah, that's where we're at with it right now. So we'll continue on with that. But yeah, there we go. That's the first ever Most Obnoxious of 2020 Herb Abrams Memorial Award winners from both sides here. Turbo Herbal, I hope we did you proud here.
Herbie Cookie.
Worst gimmick. So we follow up Most Obnoxious with the worst gimmicks of the year. One, I have two choices here. One is widely known, and the other is something that they tried on AEW Dark that I think maybe just kind of popped the internet fans, and then that's cool, and that was it. So I'll start with that one first. AEW Dark, a few months ago, they had two guys come out dressed up as pandas, and I believe they're a working tag team called the Panda Express in the United States. and that was kind of Chikara-ish, kind of, oh my God, what the hell is going on? They lost, I think, to SCU. So SCU squashed them. And that's the last we've seen of Panda Express. So, like I said, I think that was something to throw out there to, if they were a working act, maybe AEW was giving them a tryout or something on Dark, or they were just in the area and they were down a match for the Dark takings or something. That's not my place to speculate with that, but that's just the one. I had to fill something in for that category, and that's the one thing that just kind of popped into my mind just recently. There's like, bing. I was like, oh yeah, all right, there we go. The one that I'm serious about though is on the WWE side, and it's Retribution. It's the whole idea, the whole gimmick of Retribution for the year. Let's take the Black Lives Matter protests and work it into a wrestling angle, but let's make it the group bumbling and lose every week because our booker is an out of touch old man. Basically. And they claim to be Antifa, but they're not Antifa, they're anti-Ra, which means they're anti-ratings. And that's a Wrestling Observer quote right there from Brian Alvarez and Vinny and their show. And it's something that I loved throughout the summer when they first and the fall when this all started to. The only tangible payoff out of this is we got to figure out who the hacker was. And we knew it was Mustafa Ali to begin with, but it was the only real tangible payoff we got out of this. So go ahead, Moorhouse.
I totally forgot about Retribution. So I've changed my choice for WWE 2 Retribution.
Fair enough.
The reason why is because I'm tired of the Truth Commission. We've seen this back in '97. They went away for a bit. Then they came back again. Then they went away again, and now we're getting them again last year. So it's just the same gimmick as Truth Commission, just with stupid masks.
It's ironic that the former leader of the Truth Commission is on the other show, basically kicking Raw's ass in the demo with his angle that he's got going on.
And they're a bunch of jobbers. And why would Raw sign him? These guys keep destroying our show, so we're going to give them a nice contract.
You have an outside group that's terrorizing your program.
So you sign
rather than ban them from the Thunderdome immediately or whatever, ban them from, get a court injunction saying, hey, you're not allowed within 50 miles of whatever building WWE's performing at that night.
You just sign them.
It's like, we'll sign them. That's it. That's how
proper booking would have had maybe a match where they get a WWE contract if they win a Survivor Series style match.
Yeah, exactly.
Or War Games. Instead, it's like, no, here, you guys tore up all our camera equipment. Here's some contracts.
I'm going to move it down because it's a good transition. Worst feud of the year. My pick for worst feud of the year.
Oh, and I haven't said.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Independent show.
Your independent one. Go for it. Yeah. And then we'll go to the worst feud. So
I'm going with the gimmick that would have worked back in 1995 at WWF like hotcakes, and that's Master Wato of New Japan Pro Wrestling.
What's his deal? Because I watched Wrestle Kingdom and I was like, is he the second coming of Muda, or what's his
He's
deal?
A crazy eccentric Dragon Ball Z style teacher.
Eh?
So if you ever seen like Dragon Ball Z or something, he's like he's like a very eccentric teacher who's very good at kung fu.
I was not wowed by him in the junior tag match with Despy and Kanemaru. I thought that Despy and Kanemaru was definitely the stronger team in that match on night 2. I didn't get the feeling that Taguchi or Wato would walk out with the belt. Mm-hmm. I think the more I guess interesting angle happened the night after with Tenzang doing the stretcher job after the Empire basically made an impact in which the Empire went 0 for free at the Dome. So of course New Year's Dash they're going to do something. So there you go.
Watto's a gimmick trapped in '95. It's Harold Medji's kind of last gimmick that he did before he left the company.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to do some research on that because like I said, I was not very familiar with him going into Wrestle Kingdom weekend. I saw it and I thought they were taking a stab at Kenji Muto.
No, they wanted him to be a top player. They were trying to get him teamed up with Tanahashi to be like this tag team duo.
That he was supposed to be an upper mid card guy in New Japan.
He was, but the fans hated it.
Oh, whew, okay. I got.
He received 2 months of promo videos before he debuted.
Oh. See, this is the first time I'm hearing about this here, folks.
Because he's completely useless.
Wow. Oh boy. Okay. Well, I got to do my homework then.
So which one are we skipping to now?
Okay, I'm gonna skip up to worst feud of the year because we were talking about Retribution, and Retribution is involved in my worst feud of the year. And it's the only one I have written down because I couldn't think of anything on the indies or in AEW or, along the lines that would have been bad. I would have maybe just put down Big Swole versus Britt Baker from, I think it was All Out, just due to the fact that it was kind of a overproduced cinematic that really didn't lead anywhere with it. And I thought that, it could have been a better match itself, but I think they just did that because Baker was just coming off an injury. We didn't know what she could handle in the ring, whatever. That's it. So maybe that's my pick for on the independent side. But the one I really want to hit on is on the WWE side, Retribution versus the Hurt Business. And the feud that went absolutely nowhere on Monday Night Raw. Basically, catalyst of the feud, Retribution is revealed to have signed with Raw and they're doing their thing. Hurt Business walks up to Adam Pearce, who's WWE official, whatever he is. Apparently, he's now getting a title shot too. So
he's number one contender. Scrap iron, Adam Pearce.
But anyways, walks up to Adam Pearce and says, listen, for payola, basically, we'll take care of Retribution. Pearce agrees because it's WWE, of course. And we then go for the next 6 weeks seeing matches between members of the Hurt Business and Retribution where they lead nowhere to the very end where it's revealed that Mustafa Ali is the leader of Retribution and that's it. They break it off. So it was on a lousy show, it was the lousiest part of the lousy show.
Oh, and they jobbed all the time. Like, again, Retribution is as scary as the oddities.
They're not very good. Yeah, they're terrible.
Do you think Slapjack's ever going to have a chance to win the world title with that name?
Slapnuts? No. Slapjack?
Mace.
Yes. No.
Mace, the world champion.
What? Donovan Dijak and Dio Madden. I mean, really.
They had good names before they switched.
And explain the premise of Retribution. I would have been cool if it was like, hey, this is all enhancement talent that got pissed off that they were doing jobs at the beginning part of the year because we saw them on WWE Raw doing jobs at the beginning part of the year.
They from the movie Crow, they remind me of the 4 guys that the Crow has to beat before he fights the final villain.
They're the lackeys. Yeah, they're absolutely lackeys, but the problem is there's no supervillain.
There's no supervillain. Well, Mustafa Ali, but he also jobs, so what's the point?
He's a lackey now at this point. Who's the supervillain that Retribution is representing right now? Who's it?
It's Chosen Powers. Vince McMahon gonna come out in a wig and be like, it was me all along.
Apparently it's Austin Fury, but he's over on NXT now, so I don't know.
It's nobody.
This company, I don't know.
Send them back down to Ohio Valley as a joke we used to be.
Yeah, no kidding. Anyway, that's my picks for worst feud of the year. What do you have over on that side? But similar or just?
So worst feud of the year is a tie in WWE.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with Rollins versus the Mysterio family.
Okay.
That dragged on for about 72 years and ended up with Buddy Murphy dating a 17-year-old girl.
Yes. Yeah.
That was a payoff.
Barely legal, at least, but
Yeah. The payoff was we got to see Buddy Murphy end up with an near just above minimum age girl.
The payoff was the most excellent burn Alexa Bliss put on Twitter immediately after that storyline plot point dropped, basically saying, "Okay, buddy, now you're trying your chances with her. Good luck." Yeah. And of course, Alexa Bliss is the ex of Buddy Murphy, and that got the internet basically buzzing. So,
but it was just it was a long Young and the Restless style storyline that lasted way too long. My second one is a previous Worst Feud of the Year winner.
Okay.
Returning for a second reign of Worst Feud of the Year, and that would be Arson City between Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton.
Yes. Okay. Fair enough. Another WWE one. Yes.
Yes. So they're like, well, you know what? This feud was so good, we're gonna do it again. So we're seeing Orton versus Bray Wyatt, Fiend now, but they're having the same stupid matches. They're having the same stupid feud. Orton's acting like a murderous killer again. He killed Bray. He almost killed Alexa Bliss. I think it'd be the first time on WWE Raw where we saw murder. Well, seconds, because I think Stone Cold Brian Pillman almost killed Stone Cold once.
Well, third too. Don't forget, WWE Raw has been the show where a wrestler has fallen off the top of a Titantron.
All right. So 3 murders now. But why did he
at least 3? That's the thing. You could probably think more, but
unfortunately, the Fiend's character was destroyed earlier this year, or earlier in 2020, when Goldberg steamrolled him without much issue and no payback. But they continue the gimmick. They throw an Orton there, and it's just dumb. It's comic book violence.
Yeah, violence for the sake of violence. That's all it is. It's pretty bad. So, I agree with those for sure for that. So I'm going to go for it anyway for non-WWE, I guess.
Non-WWE is tough because a lot of promotions didn't have the ability to run shows this year. New Japan didn't start off till the summer. Right. AEW was very quieted till summer as well. NWA, TNA, MLW were all slow. AAA didn't really run anything this year, so it's tough to find an indie feud. I'm going to go with Jericho versus Cassidy.
Okay.
The reason why is Cassidy's a comic character. He's a mid-card comic, and to put him up there with the guy who's supposed to be carrying your company on his back and having him job to the mid-card comedy character just doesn't make any sense on long-term storytelling for Jericho. Like, I think they just buried Jericho's character this year. Yeah,
the only thing I'd caution about that would be, with the amount of new talent being established and that stuff through 2020 on the AEW side, I don't think Jericho's spot as being the guy to carry the company is as big of a spot anymore. I think there are a few other people that can carry AEW going forward with that. I agree with you. It's not a good look, though. It's really not a good look.
Ideally, you would have booked it where he draws Jericho, or he just barely loses to Jericho. Yeah. Because you want to keep Jericho at that higher main event, upper mid-card level. Instead, now, even watch a show, Jericho's been pushed down to more of a comedy dad. Yeah, basically. Yeah, mentoring these guys. And that's he's a mentor, but he's a comic character now. He's not a threat anymore.
Which that's the thing that I do like about AEW is how they bring in the old talent to mentor the new talent, and then they're not necessarily quote unquote traditional managers or anything like that. They're just there to mentor guys, that's it. Like, I mean, like, you have this all-star array of old talent, but they're not stealing the limelight away from the new talent. They're actually, in most, if not all of the cases, they're elevating them as they go. So, but yeah, no, that's perfectly fair. Awesome stuff. But I tell you what, it's hard to top the Rollins versus Mysterio family. And most of all, it's really hard to top Retribution versus the Hurt Business and the feud that goes absolutely nowhere. But anyways, whatever. There we go. We'll get back to gimmicks here. Best gimmick. We'll quickly rattle these off. My pick for best gimmick on the WWE side, NXT side, Shotzi Blackheart. I fell in love with Shotzi during the War Games vignettes that were running on NXT. Those were awesome. Those were old school WCW vignettes, and the whole build with her through Halloween Havoc, out of Halloween Havoc, and then through into War Games. Incredible. And this is somebody that I got the chance to see on the indies back in 2017 during Mania week, and kind of felt that she had the star potential. It just would take somebody to really uncork it, and they're doing it right now with NXT. She's basically, you know, this rockabilly tank girl, badass babyface, you know, tornado in there. So it's a unique look. It's a different look. It's a look made for WWE, I think. So, you know, kudos to her. Great stuff. And best gimmick, I should say, on the independent side. Gotta love that Danhausen, man. Gotta love that Danhausen. One of the few things I have enjoyed out of Ring of Honor this year was Danhausen's vignettes to try to get a contract. And this is something that they started during the pandemic to kind of keep their product slightly current and whatever. And then, yeah, so that's basically, that's what I got. Or no, I lost myself there. But anyway.
Nope. For myself, best gimmick WWE. I think it was Bayley 2 belts this year.
Okay, sure.
I really love Bayley's character. I love Bayley's run, and she's been a very good heel this year. Totally opposite of, you know, her stupid babyface gimmick she used to have, where she just gives hugs. Now she's an ass kicker. She's been a multiple-time champion this year with Sasha and then also carrying both Raw and SmackDown belts herself. She's just been fun to watch, and I hope we see more of her in 2021. I know she's taking some time off right now. My best gimmick in the indies would be the traveling world champion right now, Kenny Omega. He's bigger than life. He's living in limos. He's strutting his stuff. He's kind of like an old school Ric Flair now, going from territory to territory and destroying champions. I mean,
I saw a drawing of him with the Thanos glove from the Avengers series, and each jewel in it was a championship. So the AEW and then he had like he was just putting the Impact title in. Maybe that's a sign of things to come. He had the AAA title already in there too. You know, maybe the NWA title is next. Maybe he goes after all this.
NWA. I still have a feeling there's going to be a New Japan thing this summer. Maybe we'll have to watch and see.
Do you imagine him walking into Wrestle Kingdom 16 next year? First, him walking back into New Japan, into Wrestle Kingdom 16, but he's Ultimo Dragoning these 6 belts. They're just draped over top of him.
He just goes up to Coda and just puts a pistol to his
exactly. Coda, you got 2, but I have 6. Look at this. You know? Oh man, we can only hope. That would be amazing. That'd be a lot of fun. So, that's neat. Yeah, but yeah, just to close off my thought about Danhausen there, is that was one of the things that Ring of Honor really did well during the pandemic and everything, was these little vignette shows and everything. And they were kind of flirting with bringing him in and bringing Warhorse in and this and whatever. And then Warhorse kind of drifted off towards AEW a little bit and did the open match thing with Cody due to fan, you know, demand and that stuff and whatever. When Cody was doing the open challenges for the TNT title. So Ring of Honor, they're like, well, let's bring him in and bring Danhausen in and let him do his shtick or whatever. And so he's doing his shtick, everything. And it finally came to a culmination. And I loved how they did it with Brian Johnson, the match at Final Battle 2020. It is an amazing, because Johnson's this real no nonsense, almost a Chris Dickinson type technical wrestler who will just kick your ass. And he had enough of this, and so he spends most of the match kicking Danhausen's ass, but Danhausen wins via being spooky and goofy and weird. That's it. So, I think that put him up there, and his web content is hilarious and on Twitter and everything. So yeah, love that Danhausen.
Great choices.
For sure. Okay. We'll motor on through here. Promoter / Booker of the Year. Same category. NXT, Triple H, WWE. It's my pick on that side. And Tony Khan for AEW is my pick on the other side. Simple as that.
I'm not going to counterbalance you with anything there. I think those are solid choices. You could, for indie side, you could also throw in Don Callis's name for creating that relationship now with All Elite Wrestling.
Yep.
And bringing more prominence to Impact, which has been desperately needed ever since they purchased the company.
I think you watch for that in 2021. I think that we're still waiting to see this storyline reach its full horsepower here. I think they're still in the burnout box a little bit, if we want to use a drag racing term out of that. But they're ramping up a little bit with that for sure. As we record this, we're a week out from the Impact Hard to Kill pay-per-view. It's going to be next week. At this time, I think on the 16th or something like that, and that big 6-man, and obviously there's going to be stuff leading up to it this week on Dynamite and on Dark and you name it, and then of course,
and you have the
Impact,
and the Bucks just have joined their stable too now.
That's right. So big things are happening. They're dropping huge plot points as they are. So watch for Callis as potentially the promoter / Booker of the Year in 2022, in 2021, I should say. But for 2020, I think that the Wednesday Night Wars were still huge for the pandemic, still garnering big numbers, and AEW more often than not knocked NXT off. But NXT did get a few jabs in and get a few blows in and win the ratings battle a little bit. So that will continue.
And they both beat Raw one week.
They've beaten Raw several times. So yeah,
Raw's now the C show.
Yeah. Great transition, because we're going to worst promotion of the year. So with WWE, it's brand, basically. We're looking at the worst brand out of all the brands they've got. I got Raw down as the worst brand. It's the worst brand. The show's too dang long.
Same complaint as for the last 10 years.
I was going to say, you can replay the segment from 2017. We say the same thing. 2018, we say the same thing. 2019, we said the same thing. So I'm not going to say it here. I want to go ahead and just put down Ring of Honor as the worst promotion on the independent side, just due to the fact that they really didn't get a lot going this year through the pandemic and out. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they were bad. I'm just saying that they were the worst at kind of putting out fresh and new content. However, that has changed. They've finally found their niche a little bit and that stuff, and they should be back and ready to rock and roll here as we go. I could easily put down the NWA, which basically just stopped as well when the pandemic started, and they had a pay-per-view upcoming with the Crockett Cup, and then that was it. They couldn't. That was gassed, and right after that, their head of creative, Dave Lagana, got implicated in the speaking out movement and was removed from his office, I guess. And they brought back in Dave Marquez and basically rebooted it as part of that United Wrestling Network Primetime Live, the weekly pay-per-view series and that stuff. And it seems to be doing the trick a little bit. I know they're in a kind of a COVID hiatus right now, but they're due to start back up, I think, maybe even next month in February or something. They're going to start back up again. So, that's basically what I have over on the independent side of things. But my picks again, obviously Monday Night Raw, terrible, and Ring of Honor, just due to the fact of lack of content of fresh stuff. That's it.
I have no counterbalance for that. That's going to be my votes too. Raw is too dang long, not enough interesting characters. When ratings go down, they bring in legends. Legends are more over than your current product. That's a problem. Yep. And then Ring of Honor again. They're still recovering from when the Elite left. They haven't done that full recovery yet. Their relationship with New Japan seems to be done. They're just kind of floundering right now.
Okay, worst match of the year. I only have one thing written down here, and this is building off of something that you had already mentioned. My worst match for 2020 across the board, WWE, AEW, non-WWE, and everything. Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio, Extreme Rules. The eye for an eye. Let's pop out somebody's eye match. And the eye is not even a... the eye is a ping pong ball with a Twizzler's pull and peel stuck to the end of it. As TL, a valued contributor to the channel, said in the WWE year in review, when I revealed that fact to him, because he had not seen that match yet, he had heard stories. His quote, and it's one of the best quotes in the history of the channel: "A retina? They gave that thing a retina? they faked a retina? Terrible. The worst.
It's great TV, huh?"
That's good shit. Yeah. Yep. And you wonder why Moxley left. Anyway, yeah, moving on. Let's go to, well, what was your pick for worst match of the year? Was it that one as well, or is it something?
It's a really good choice. It wasn't my pick, but
Okay.
It's up there in my top 3.
Yeah.
And I have 2 different matches from different companies. So with WWE,
Go ahead, yeah.
we're going with WrestleMania, Edge versus Orton, or
Really?
to my opinion, Snore.
It went longer than it needed to go. Yeah, the Backlash match is way better than the WrestleMania match, but
yeah, the WrestleMania match was just slow. It was obviously recorded in different sessions, lots of rest holds, traveling around the building. It's just a really, really boring match.
Yeah.
And then with AEW, this one, for reasons that I'll discuss later, Hardy versus Guevara.
Okay.
Matt Hardy suffered a bad concussion. They continued the match. Nobody knew what to do. It was a bit chaotic, and they just, quickly rushed through everything, got it done. But they let Hardy wrestle probably 5 or 10 minutes too long after that concussion.
Okay, so one of the things that we talk about the most here on this channel, even in the off times, even when we are not doing the Meltzer Awards, is the most disgusting promotional tactic and what will win it for each year. Just to build off of something that you had mentioned, Moorhouse, I have down the Matt Hardy, Sammy Guevara match from, I think it was All Out, that the Matt Hardy injury, I should say, took place. And I think that the only issue that I took issue with it out of that was that they continued to match and try to get a finish off of that when Matt was clearly hurt and clearly shouldn't have been in there anymore. But that's minor in comparison to my WWE pick, and that was the Black Wednesday COVID cuts of 2020, the most disgusting promotional tactic ever in the history of any pro wrestling, bar none. Hashtag don't at me. That is one where I haven't, due to my outside commitments and that stuff, I work in the media industry for a major broadcaster, and I was contacted by so many people that worked for that broadcaster to appear on different shows in different markets and that stuff because they knew that I was a wrestling guy, and could I make heads or tails out of what WWE was doing? And my simple answer to all of them was, I'll jump on. I have no idea what they're doing. I could spitball all day, but to find logic in this is absolutely mind-boggling,
So I have the same for the AEW non-WWE stuff, letting Matt Hardy wrestle concussed and just not giving him proper support.
Yeah.
They should have, the better way to solve that would have just had Sammy Guevara just shocked and then just cut away and, let it be. I'll give updates later on the show. Instead, they had Matt Hardy finish the match, which caused a lot of controversy with fans. His wife got really upset with AEW during that because his life could have been risked. You were just being complete idiots there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For discussing promotional tactic in WWE, the Black Wednesday is huge, but it's nowhere near the problem I had with Twitchgate.
Okay.
Having wrestlers not being able to make a living right now because there's no touring, there's no shows. The contract they signed is not a guarantee. It's just what you could expect to make with that WWE at that time. I think you froze.
Oh, did I? No. Hey.
Okay, perfect. Anyways, they basically told wrestlers who found outlets to connect with their fans, make some extra money, try to survive. Oh, you can't do that because you're playing. They think you're your character, even though they're all twitching under their real names. Oh, no, they only know you because you're AJ Styles, which I agree to extent. But to tell them, like, okay, you can't make extra money, just suffer with your low paychecks for now. It's terrible.
Yeah. Or if you want to make extra money, go ahead. But we're going to take 75% off the top.
So they're making nothing. Yeah, they're making nothing.
So they're making next to nothing at this point. So, yeah, I mean, it's very tone deaf, I think. And AEW had a field day with it, as we've seen. I think they had a pay-per-view, I think it was All Out the week after this was all announced, because it was all the last week of August that this was talked about. And they had a really funny little skit with Kip and Penelope. And this was when they were still teasing Miro coming in, and basically had that whole thing pop up at the bottom saying AEW does support the outside endeavors of all their wrestling talent and will not take any cash off the top. We fully support them. They can do whatever they want, basically. So,
yeah, as long as they're not doing
breaking the law.
Things.
Yeah, exactly. So long as you're not drug running or anything, you're good.
Yeah. And this whole Twitchgate caused something that I've really hoped in the wrestling industry for many, many years to talk about again, and that's unionizing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the person who brought it up was fired like within 3-4 minutes of mentioning this.
Yeah, Zelina Vega. Yep.
But they've had, I think Paige has also been on board with Zelina Vega, been like, why don't we have a union? And they've already, with the U.S. government change, there's already more talk about investigation into WWE employee practices and seeing, why they're considered independent contractors, yet have no rights as an independent contractor.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely something that we're going to watch closely in 2021 going forward. So, yeah, the great picks there. We jump ahead now to worst major wrestling show. I got Raw for WWE again. And
it's not a major show.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. So this is the one thing is I got the TV shows mixed with the pay-per-views and I screwed up. So, all right. So scratch that here. Worst major wrestling show, of course, talking about the worst pay-per-view of the year. Well, it's Extreme Rules for me. No ifs, ands, or buts. iGate. Just a very unwatchable show. I think it had one of the lowest ratings that I gave it for any show that took place in 2020 of any of the evaluations. Or I think after that show was the one that made me decide, hey, I'm not going to do WWE B shows or B pay-per-views for the channel anymore because nobody watches them and they constantly get scored in about the 6 or 7 mark. So out of 10. So I mean, like it's not worth it. It just isn't. And as for non-WWE AEW, again with the pandemic, it was so tough to see any major shows happen and that stuff. And I mean, we talked about the Crockett Cup getting canceled. That was a big one that was going to be huge for NWA, and that was it. I really can't think of anything overtly bad that happened non-WWE wise.
You can't, hey? I can.
Go ahead. And because I was just going to think back in my mind and maybe just rank the lowest AEW pay-per-view of the year that I thought that was.
It's not an AEW pay-per-view that I'm mentioning.
Okay, go for it.
This one is an independent wrestling show.
Okay.
Produced by Gallows and Anderson. I'm throwing up Talkin' Shop Mania as my worst choice for pay-per-view for independence.
But the deal with that one is it's supposed to be bad on purpose.
And congratulations, you won. Congratulations, you won.
I think there were two of them this year. There was the Talkin' Shop Mania 1 and Talkin' Shop Mania 2.
Number 1 is my choice.
Okay.
It's just nothing but inside jokes. It's basically if the Elite, being the Elite, had its own TV show, this is and it became a pay-per-view, this is what it would be. Which
they have talked about doing sometime in 2021. But
which makes sense because they're friends with they're part of the same stable now, so they can easily do that.
They could do a Talkin' Shop Mania BTE crossover, and that would be it. Okay, sure, I get the logic.
And then for they wanted to be the worst, they got the worst. Congratulations, here's your trophy.
Okay, awesome.
WWE, it's going to be our always favorite show in the Middle East, Super Showdown.
Mm-hmm.
Last year's Super Showdown had Goldberg destroy all Bray Wyatt's momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Had Undertaker destroy AJ Styles. It led up to something, but it's like, oh, here's an old guy and he just beats a guy.
Didn't even bother reviewing that show for the channel at all, because as I do for all the Saudi shows, is because I don't agree with the regime or basically the government or how they treat people over there. That becomes a fan vote on a classic pay-per-view, and we take a look at it. And that's so go back through. I can't remember which one won the fan vote. That it wasn't WCW Greed, because that was March. I have to go back through the channel and find out exactly which one we did, but we did something instead on that day and kind of released it and put it out there, and everybody loved it. So, go back through the back catalog and see.
But yeah, Showdown. It seems the Saudi shows always love to win that worst major wrestling show, and I think they're going to go back there this spring again, and we're going to see it nominated again.
Well, they've announced something called WWE Super. Yeah. It's a tongue twister. I can't even talk about it. They've announced something called WWE Superstar Spectacle. Try saying that 3 times fast. That's a cold read, too. Somebody has a list. That's awesome. All right. WWE Superstar Spectacle is supposed to be coming to India, of all things, in 2021 at some time. This would be like an Indian WrestleMania, I would think, or a supercard of some sort.
And again, Vince is trying to win most disgusting promotional tactic already for 2021 with having large shows in foreign countries where the COVID restrictions are quite different than North America.
I don't know what the COVID restrictions are in India. I would think they are fairly liberal if they're even considering doing a massive show over there.
But they're doing a Saudi show, and that's going to be a full stadium.
Yeah. All right.
I think Kiss did a concert there in Saudi Arabia last week, and they had 30,000 people.
Kiss did a concert in the United Arab Emirates.
And
had 30,000 people. So that's the whole thing. Is we group the Middle East together. It's kind of a trope of North American culture is grouping all the Middle Eastern countries together, but they are all unique and different in how they run, because a lot of them have been warring with each other since the beginning of time and that stuff. But it's but yeah, it's mind-boggling. But it's WWE trying to grasp as much money as they can here to try to get back. But yeah, by all accounts, even from hardcore Kiss fans that I know personally and that stuff, that Kiss pay-per-view concert was terrible.
Well, yeah. I'm going to have no comment. I've seen Kiss live, and they're a fun band to see live, and that's all I'll say.
I've seen them live twice. The second time was because it was my last concert at the Coliseum here in town, here in Edmonton.
I was at that one.
And so I wanted to go see them play that venue because that's a band from that era of the Coliseum, and just get one last concert in there. And that was awesome. I had Paul Stanley kind of fly over top of my head, and that was neat. So whatever. Anyway, best major wrestling show of the year. So now I've had time to rewrite this and take off the TV shows and actually put the pay-per-views in. So WWE wise, my pick for best major wrestling show for 2020 was the 2020 Royal Rumble. We had an amazing Rumble match with Drew McIntyre winning. We had an amazing undercard. Don't forget, this was Fiend versus Daniel Bryan as well, which was great. And yeah, Charlotte Flair won, but it was unique what they did the next night on Raw, where she actually challenged Rhea Ripley for the NXT title at WrestleMania. So, yeah, to me, that was the best WWE show of the year, was the Royal Rumble 2020. Hard to believe that did happen in 2020. It feels like a 2019 event, but there you go. And for AEW, and New Japan and whatever, I'm going to put down. I'm gonna put AEW Revolution just ahead of Wrestle Kingdom from last year as the best show on my side.
Revolution.
Just due to the fact that they had that balls out tag match, and Moxley finally walking out with the belt, and
fans, and yeah, he walked in the crowd, and yeah,
it was a great pay-per-view. Great pay-per-view. Made me feel like I was watching Super Brawl from WCW back in like the early 90s or something like that. It was great.
Still feels 1,000 years ago.
It does. It does.
For me, best major wrestling show would be WrestleMania.
Okay.
Just for 2 matches. I loved AJ Undertaker, and I loved Cena Bray Wyatt. They were just fun matches to watch. They did I think that's the way they basically created cinematic matches that night, and they created one of the best and one of the funniest. Seeing Cena come out in NWO colors was hilarious. It was just a fun event. The matches, it's hard to watch wrestling with no crowd and no audience and just no audible noise whatsoever other than the echoes that's in the building. So that took away experience from the matches itself, but the cinematic matches, they knocked it out of the park, and that saved WrestleMania.
Right, exactly. So
with double, and then for indie would be Double or Nothing.
Okay.
We got to see the one of my favorite tag team matches I've seen, which is the Bucks versus the Elite. Hangman and Omega. They just told a great story. It was fun to watch. The whole storyline of Hangman being drunk and just not caring about anything really played into that match.
Yeah. No, that's all great choices for sure. Great choices. Our last award for part 1, because we are going way over time here with everything. We're going to go into a part 2 coming up on the channel here in the next couple of days or so. It is the best television announcer for 2020. So our last award for part 1. My pick for WWE, believe it or not, Vic Joseph. Yes, the newly appointed voice for NXT. I thought that he did a tremendous job with the limited amount of months behind him and that stuff that he has had in that seat since Mauro Ranallo left that position earlier this year. I think that Vic has done a tremendous job and continues to do so. I hope that they don't try to bring him up again, because NXT really needs him right now. And I think that they found a really happy medium with that free man or free person booth right now, even though it's virtual a little bit, with Wade Barrett and Beth Phoenix alongside of Vic. It's kind of funny. It was really funny earlier this year. I can't remember which it was. I think it was Halloween Havoc, where Vic Joseph was at ringside with 2 independent wrestlers, and the girl was supposedly Beth Phoenix, and the other independent wrestler was Wade Barrett, but they both were secluded off site in their homes calling the show, that stuff. But I mean, if you're going to do that, WWE, just have them all at home, just like what we're doing. Zoom them in. It doesn't hurt. We understand. Trust us. We know. This is the worst deal. But yeah, that's what we do. Best television announcer on the Indies and AEW, you name it. Tony Schiavone had an amazing year, a real, just an incredible 2020 for him. And he's back. He's the voice of TNT. Everybody loves him. He's the voice of everybody's childhood from WCW. And now he's the voice of everybody's adulthood with AEW. So I think that you could do Excalibur and Tony exclusively and carry forward with that. And I think people would be really happy with it. Or hell, Tony and Chris Jericho during the pandemic with some of the funniest wrestling commentary and most entertaining wrestling commentary I've seen in a long, long time. I had a lot of fun watching them.
For myself, Tony Schiavone's been fantastic. It's nice to see him enjoy his job again. When WCW ended, you could tell he was just done. He just didn't care. He was frustrated. He didn't like creative. It's tough when you don't know who your boss is every day. And I can understand that. For some reason, my Word file renamed him Tony Shinbone. So I think that's going to be his new name now.
Tony Shinbone.
And then for the WWE side, it's unfortunate because I have some bad news for you. It's going to be Wade Barrett for my choice.
Hey, yeah, he started the year out with the NWA doing the Stu Bennett ringside stuff with Joe Galley, and then of course when the NWA shut down, there wasn't a whole lot happening. They bring him back in for everything else for the rest of the year on NXT, I should say. They bring him back in for NXT, Halloween Havoc, and the takeovers, and you name it. And yeah, he's at home in that booth. I think that they got a real solid.
He has one of the best voices in wrestling. It's just so deep English accent. You're just intimidated by him. He was great in NWA. I think he replaced Jim Cornette.
Yes.
As the color guy there.
Yep. That's amazing. Everybody who went for the NWA last year that was on that Power show is just made stars of themselves basically off of it. So, good for that. We're going to look at that NWA Power run, even though it was a short 8 or 9 month run for that show, as it probably being one of the more influential programs that we've seen, around the turn of this decade or so, 2019, 2020 or so. So that's it. Anyway, that's it for part 1. I'm Kellen Nitro. He's been Moorhouse. You can follow me on Twitter at Kellen Nitro. Moorhouse, as we've talked about in the past, is incognito right now. But if you have any comments, put them below in the comment section, and I'll be sure. And he checks the channel all the time too. So, we'll be sure to grab your comments as they show up. But this is it for part 1. Join us for part 2 coming up in the next couple of days or so. Again, happy wrestling watching, folks. We'll see you next time here from the 2020 Meltzer Awards here on Nitromaniac TV's Wrestling Unlimited. It's so big, it's so huge. We're going into overtime with a second show. So